So the Nouvolo Steck 2.0 takes 4 slim fans in its default configuration. There is one possible configuration that I didn't test initially, so we'll revisit that and then let's wrap this one up. Welcome to Machines and More. In my initial thermal testing with this case in the stock configuration, using only 2 fans at the top tested out a little bit better than having all 4 fans in the exhaust position, plus you save some money, at least in terms of CPU-only thermals. Right? For gaming, having 4 exhaust fans, they did yield marginally better GPU temps, but that was at the expense of a higher CPU temperature, so it seemed like adding the 2 extra fans wasn't really worth it, and I think part of that has to do with how little of an air gap there is at the bottom of the Steck 2.0. In my following correspondence with the case designer, it was brought to my attention that it would be a good idea to test another possible airflow configuration, which is a balanced airflow configuration with bottom intake fans and top exhaust case fans. In addition, since the comparison cases for the initial review utilize the ID Cooling IS60 EVO and the Steck 2.0 use the Big Shuriken 3, would that difference in cooler yield different results? Maybe. So I didn't want to get this wrong, and big thanks to them for bringing up these talking points. I went ahead and retested these setups. So first off, the easy one to get out of the way is just to see if the cooler, the IS60 EVO, is significantly different. With the Steck 2.0, the Big Shuriken 3 does fit with a 25mm fan, and usually you'll want to go with that because it's a taller and larger heatsink, and that puts the intake point as close to the outside panel as possible. So same exact cooler fan here, same RPM, swapping the heat sinks, well, it does yield a small difference, although it's really not hugely significant, so more or less they yield the same result when the system only deals with heat from the CPU. Jumping into the airflow retest for CPU only testing, comparing the 2 configurations here, indeed the balanced airflow does yield better results, which is good to know considering that 4 exhausting fans was worse in this scenario than when previously tested. So how about for combined CPU-GPU use? Typically speaking, most sandwich style cases, they perform better when your case fans are exhausting on net. So some would call this negative pressure. In short, this is because makeup air has to come in through your side panels, and that's going to go into the intake path of your CPU and your air cooler if you're using one. Depending on the case layout inside, the benefit to the CPU or GPU cooling is going to vary, and at least in this case it looks like a negative pressure setup is still beneficial to the GPU temps. In fact, when you throw the GPU into the mix, the 2-fan setup is still the most reasonable one, and I do think if you run the bottom fans one way, they tend to interfere with the GPU cooling. If you run them the other direction, they interfere with the CPU cooling. So other than the pressure implications here, I think the way they are circulating air inside the case also causes some mixed results. So yes, while in a pure CPU rendering use case scenario, the 4 fans in balanced airflow yields a small benefit. In a combined scenario, it's probably easiest and most straightforward just to stick to 2 top exhausts. So to wrap up the series of videos on the Nouvolo Steck 2.0 here, I think overall the case is kind of a mixed bag. I like that this case isn't just a sandwich style case that copies the design of other cases on the market. You know, it looks good in general. You've got these cascading ventilation holes that they vary in size, and you've got the recessed rear I/O section, all pretty well thought out touches here. And these all contribute to a very streamlined look, and probably the best part of this case is just how good it looks on a desk. The configurability for the center divider is a nice touch, although I wish it were a bit more granular than just one whole GPU slot. And the whole thing where you need an entirely different rear panel seems a little bit wasteful, especially if a user might never use that extra rear panel. On the other hand, I can't help but feel that the utilization of the internal volume is a bit inefficient. If there was a way to let users configure it to 4 slim fans or 2 30mm fans, that would be great. Perhaps some type of mini top hat system can make that happen. Not sure there. But if I had to choose one, I think 2 top 30mm fans would be it, and I think most users would go that route as well. This build quality, it's hit or miss. I saw a big manufacturing variance on one of the top hat components, and as a whole, the construction, it's mostly average. You got some flaking paint here and there, some misaligned panels, and for how much this costs, I think it really needs to be tighter, and I think some users will be disappointed to shell out this much and end up with potential issues. And on that note, I think the biggest impediment to most potential buyers is the cost here. To get this one set up for a 240mm AIO, you're ponying up extra for the top hat. So at this very moment, this case is $209 plus shipping to wherever you are, and compare that to the A4H2O from Li & and that's much less than that, and it's actually optimized for liquid cooling and a lot better performing. The Steck 2.0 has very generous air cooler clearance, but as we saw, the Li & Q58, it's a little bit better thermally, and I think the Apple case fan clearance there has everything to do with that. You can get the case and then get the top hat just to run standard fans at the top, but it adds a lot of volume and visual weight. It just doesn't look as streamlined there, but that is an option. If I wanted to spend that level of cash on a boutique sandwich style case, I would stretch a little bit and go for the Forum T1 V2 because most users will be more happy with it. It'll be smaller and it performs really well. And the big difference there is that the build quality is every bit deserving of its price tag. So there you have it, not a bad case on its own. Certainly it has many merits, but there's just a lot of competition out there right now. So I hope you enjoyed this series. I'll wrap up the year with you guys shortly. In the meantime, I hope you are enjoying the holiday season wherever you are. Please give a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Links are down below, and as always, thank you so much for your viewership.